the Sleeping Grush podcast. I'm Lore Master Matt.
And I'm Phelan John.
And we are brought to you today by Cardboard Corner Cafe, Overland Park, Kansas's premier gaming cafe. Stop in for a wonderful waffle menu, lovely drinks, and just about any game that you could possibly imagine sitting on the shelves ready to just be unboxed and played at your table. These are wonderful folks, and if you're ever up in the Kansas City area, I highly suggest you stop in. They're all friendly. It's a great bit of fun. There's an amazing hobby store right next door. It's a great place. That's Cardboard Corner Cafe, and they are nice enough to let us use their room when we can get in there. Today we're not there, John, are we?
We're not there, but no fault of theirs.
No fault of theirs. We're just getting our schedules mixed up. But we are back from Gen Con. We dropped the amazing Gen Con extravaganza episode last night. And we're back to share some more fun with you, some lessons we learned there at the con, and to preview another con that we have upcoming.
reapercon.
Yeah, reapercon. reapercon's always been one of my favorite cons, John. I don't know how you feel about it. It's one of those smaller cons. It is mostly paint and hobby related. Reaper as a company puts this on down in Denton, Texas, on the north side of Dallas Metroplex every year. I don't know how many people they have that come in, but it's kind of low key. It's very laid back. There's a lot of classes, and there's a lot of space you can breathe. It's not like Gen Con, where there's 80,000 people running around and you're shoulder to shoulder with them in the exhibition hall, but I really enjoy reapercon.
Yeah, it's absolutely, in my mind, the most chill of the conventions we go to. Yeah,
absolutely.
The atmosphere is not frenetic, like it is in the other events. It's the pace is slower. The venues seem a little more, I don't know, calmer, intimate, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. For my part, it's interesting that the big three that we go to, then we go to several, but the biggest three are Adepticon, now in Milwaukee, recently in Chicago, Gen Con in Indianapolis, and then reapercon over Labor Day weekend. All very different from each other. Gen Con is all the games. Adepticon is miniatures focused. And reapercon is focused on the hobbying part of the hobby, the sculpting, painting, presenting your craft, And so there's very few game events. It's not like there's a whole large room full of multiple game events. We put on games, sort of other companies, but the focus is more on the painting of the models, acquiring skills, like Matt said, through classes, and all the different techniques, from the very basics to objective source lighting and flesh tones, shading and blending, all these other techniques. And of course, there's a big painting contest, is what ends the convention.
Yeah, the MSP Open.
Right. And which you can also have sub-contests. Like we have a manufacturer's contest for DGS nested inside the MSP.
Right.
So,
right.
But as a, it just feels like, Gen Cons, you're going to the, the massive rave inside the warehouse, and reapercon speakeasy with the big couches and the carpet, so
that's right.
Just has a different feel,
So reapercon's down in Denton, Texas. It's over the Labor Day weekend, so it's about 2 weeks from when we're recording this. Probably a week from when you guys start to pick this up and we get it published. John, what can we expect? What can a person expect if they're a DGS Games player, if they play freeblades? What can they expect if they come down to reapercon?
Well, so we will have a booth there. We're a vendor in the vendor hall. Standard size booth that we've been taking to the last few events, 20 by 10, led by the wonderful Julie Price and Jennifer Felix, to sell you models and other accessories to play the game. And of course, around them will be other different from, for example, Gen Con, be other vendors to support that in terms of, there's people there with terrain, there's people there with paints, there's people there with other accessories. So it's a very miniatures friendly, setting in the vendor hall. And then if you haven't been, with the way the structure is, the big open space in reapercon are tables, like it would be an open gaming area in another convention, but it's open painting. But what people do there is they occupy these tables in this big ballroom to paint in between the events that they've signed up for, classes typically, seminars, whatever. And so there's a big open area to the side of the vendor hall that is all the round tables with people. I know our crew, our friends from the KC area, typically go down there as a group, occupy a couple of tables put together somewhere near power. They always hunt down a spot. Right. There's a floor mounted outlet, for their lights. And then they occupy that space during the weekend and they go from there to different events that they're part of. I know other people do the same thing. And then there's, hobby personalities. A lot of the people that people follow on social media, Twitch and YouTube and what have you, that do podcasts and classes and demonstrations of all these various hobby techniques, sculpting and painting and all the different related parts of the craft are there in kind of a, painter's row, showing off their skills, teaching people, answering questions, interacting with their fans. That's pretty awesome. And then there's also a place for games, not as big as some other conventions. And this year, in a very healthy way, our Texas players of freeblades are going to be taking care of most of the events. In fact, all of the non-demo events, will be put on by people other than DGS, our Questia crew down there and their play groups. Some of us, Matt and I, and a couple other people are going down with the DGS team, will be available to play games and to give demos. We're not on a fixed schedule, so come by the booth or catch us somewhere. It's not a very big venue. It's not hard. We're not hard to find. And
we're not.
We will figure it out how to make that work for your personal schedule inside your classes. And what I found is that ReaperCon is the one convention for me where I get the most freeblades gaming in. Generally, the Adepticon, I'm more involved in events. Of course, the tournament's very large at Adepticon. I'm involved in that. And at Gen Con, it's where I get to meet with a lot of other people in the industry for various projects and things we're cooperating on, things we're trying to do. But at ReaperCon, the pace is much more laid back for me, and I get to just sit down and just play freeblades. So if there's plenty of people to give demos. I'll be one of them if somebody wants one. But if you're already a player, you just want to play a game, my answer is yes. So
yeah.
I think Paul and I were down there one ReaperCon, but we played 3 or 4 games back to back. That was amazing.
It was a great year for us.
Yeah, I'm going to bring a case with several of my free bands and be ready to be able to do stuff like that. In addition to just providing, hey, you want to learn the game, we'll teach you the game. But if you're already a player and you want to just get a one-off game in, I'm down for that. I believe our friends, Matt, down there have a 150 gold tournament. Is that right?
They do. Yeah.
So
you can, if you're a freeblades player and you're going to show up at ReaperCon, you can get in on that tournament, and that's going to be a really fun thing. We haven't been able to put on a tournament at ReaperCon before, mainly due to the size of the venue and the way that it's structured. But they found a way, and they're going to get it done, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, traditionally the only tournament event of that type is CAV. There's a very strong following there. There'll be other games out there, typically role playing more than anything else. Yep. Reaper, the company that runs this convention, unlike other conventions run by some gaming organization that is putting on a show, Reaper is a manufacturer of miniatures, and most of their miniatures are designed for to be the role playing NPCs and adventurers in your role playing game. And so obviously I'd like to see a lot of role playing games get played, and they do. And they sponsor a lot of events down there as well. So it's a very good time, very laid back. Definitely can get some freeblades gaming in of whatever type if you want to join us.
Yeah, so if you're heading down there, there's a lot to do, not just from DGS Games, but all over the place. And we're there. We're going to be very open for games, probably over in the open gaming area. So come by, look us up, and sit down and play some games with us, because we don't get that opportunity very often, especially at these events. Yeah. And it's really good for us to be able to sit down and play with folks that we normally don't get to, because as DGS staff, we don't participate in the tournaments. So we're not playing folks when we get to like Gen Con or Adepticon. We're mostly running events, but here we've got a little more freedom, and we would love to sit down and have a game with you.
Also, one thing I think we're doing new. Well, do that back. I know we're doing it. I know it's new. I'm not sure how many people know about it. We are bringing in some prototypes of larger scale versions of our models, because at past reapercons we've been asked about that. The con, like I've said, is very focused on painting. What you do with your model, the painting and basing and preparation of your model for display or contest or playing on the game table or whatever you do with it. And so the larger scale models and busts are something that the more skilled of you. I am not one of those people. I'm happy just to get a free band on the table. But I'm surrounded by a lot of talented people that paint a lot better than I do. And some like to show off their skills with something that's a little larger, a little more of a showcase. And so we're bringing some of these for sale to test the market. So if that's something that interests you, please go by the booth and talk to Jennifer and Julie about some of these larger scale models we're bringing as a test. If that becomes popular enough, then we will bring a line of those models in the future to future reapercons.
Yeah, that's very exciting to me. That's something that I have not broken into yet, but would really like to as my skills develop as a painter. And I know that a lot of you feel that same way and are wondering where those DGS models are. Well, we're going to start that. We're going to take a look at that this coming reapercon. So if you're interested, like John said, definitely stop by.
Okay, right. So
yeah,
go ahead, Matt.
we're going to get to our main topic today, which is really interesting to me, and something that we've watched develop over the last couple of years, and that is the idea of freeblades encounters.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to tell you some things that we've got planned and some things that we've done that we're going to build upon. But before we do that, let's talk about what Freeblades Encounters is. Freeblades is a skirmish game. 2 or more players are playing a free band, a group of adventurers in the world of Phalon. Either competitively as a group of free bands or cooperatively in a game like Beast Hunt, etc. But typically competitively. In encounters, the players are the free band, and a game master plays the non-player characters and threats in the various scenarios. And so you get into, we're using the exact same rules. So you get into a game of encounters, you're usually typically, it was 2 characters per Adepticon, Matt?
At Adepticon, we were running 1 character per because of the amount of people we had at our table. But generally speaking, it's 2. It's a hero and a follower.
Right. So you take your hero and your follower, and you are often, and these rules, by the way, shameless plug, go to our website, choose the downloads tab, and in the downloads section under rule supplements is Freeblades Encounters. So it's free. It is a supplement to the Freeblades rules. You have to know Freeblades to be able to play it. And all it really does is tell you, give you ideas on how to incorporate the idea of making a cooperative game out of Freeblades. Only a couple of pages long. And it's really a toolkit. We can't tell you how your group's going to be. So we give you the tools for you to adapt to how your how your group plays. So the baseline that we give you is, as Matt said, you take a hero character and a follower character, and the group of you, engage some threat, participate in some task, some scenario, possibly linked multiple scenarios. Matt will be talking about that in a second.
Yeah.
Over the course of 2 or 3 different encounters or more, and so you're playing, and your group of friends, your group of fellow players are on the same team, like you with a free band. And so, can you give us an example, Matt? One from Gen Con of how it went?
Yeah. So encounters went really well for us at Gen Con. We mentioned that in the last podcast. There were 2 large encounter games that were constantly kind of ongoing. We ran through 3 of them a day, and one of them was the Return to Shadow Crag, which was a Khazaric expedition back into one of their lost cities to see what had happened to it. And the other one was called the Assault on Kiss and Chazardad, which was a Trazerite assault on an Eclipse blade school. And both of them featured just beautiful scenery, and both of them featured large groups of people doing this thing. Both of them were basically assaults on a given point. In the Khazaric scenario, you were playing against a group of demons who had infiltrated the lost city of Shadowcrag. And in the other game, obviously, you were fighting against the Eclipse.
And so, but these at Gen Con, these games weren't linked. You signed up if you're a player and you played in Shadowcrag. You were, did you have to be a Khazaric? I mean, what was what were they told there?
You did. So one of the things about encounters that we've found that's really fun for people is that we're able to tell a story well using encounters. So the story was an expedition of Khazaric that were on the resettlement committee that were moving in through one of the offshoot tunnels into Shadowcrag to see just what had happened there. So you got to choose from a group of Khazaric figures that were basically pre-gens, but they were, the regular characters from a freeblades game. And, if you were the first one to come up for your event, you got to choose first. And, if we needed to put more people around the table, which we often did at Gen Con because we oversold our tables pretty hard, we would throw a couple of new followers or a group of 3 followers of the same kind out onto the field to help out with that. So each of them was one encounter, a 2-hour encounter game long, and the gist of the story was played out over those 2 hours. Now, that's how we've run things kind of in the past at events, but we have had encounters campaigns here in Kansas City. The Obsidian Oracle comes to mind as something we ran a couple of summers ago that ran the entire summer and was played out over 8 games, where there was a larger storyline, and each week you were participating in a different part of that story. And we're kind of planning to bring that into your con experience starting at Adepticon.
Didn't we have some? I was a player. Full disclosure, I was a player in Obsidian Oracle that Matt game mastered. Wasn't there one night where like the number of players grew to like, I don't know, almost 20? It was
16 players.
Yeah, and you had to take a couple on as your assistant game masters because of the popularity of the event.
I did. We had that. We have a room at Tabletop Game where we have our Tuesday nights, and there's 6 tables in there. And so we had laid out the terrain over 2 tables. Every other table was just full of people sitting and waiting. And so like you said, John, we had to take on 2 people to help me out to game master that game because that was such a popular encounter. And that's one of the things we want to emphasize as we're talking about encounters, that people really get into them. People are into the head-to-head combat and the competition, obviously, because we're running bigger and bigger tournaments. But there's also something to be said for running as a team and telling a story, because Phelan is stories. And of course, I would say that because my shameless plug is Lore Master. Phelan is full of stories that we get to tell, and there's some amazing stories, and it's even more fun when you get to participate in them as you're going along.
And so You said something about, because I know people are going to catch it, Matt. So let's just talk about it now. We did have a large crew. If you can imagine, you know, 16 players all on the same side for the most part. I think one or two of those folks were helping Matt out with the non-player characters and the bad guys. But for the most part, we have a very large crew. And it's not always your turn to go, right? So you have people.
It isn't.
But the goodness to using side initiative and having only one or two characters per person is, if Matt said it's a melee phase, we could all, as long as there was a couple extra game masters there, it wasn't just one game master, we knocked it out fairly quickly. And so
we did.
If you made you knew what you were doing and you knew what you wanted to do, and you made your move fairly quickly, you might have a minute or so while your fellow players decided, what they were doing. If they're part of the counter space a little more complicated, or there were a little more threats, and so they had to choose from a couple different options. But there was no real significant downtime. It's definitely, yeah. As a person who's been running role-playing games for a ridiculous amount of time, but who runs Bright Sword, our role-playing game, even less than there would be between 6 players running through the initiative and standard initiative. If I was running you had the 6 players in initiative order. Okay, Bobby, it's your turn. Missy, it's your turn. Who's next? And the other people are waiting while that person's going. That's not a part of encounters. So the action is actually skipping right along. Maybe a complicated combat with several people in it, and you're not. And even then, it's not a significant amount of downtime, which, watching Matt put on, and the other guys on Matt's team, Jacob and Chris and Luke and all those folks, Jager, our lovely producer, put on games at Gen Con. These people were on their feet. These people were engaged and involved the entire time. There was no breaking off to go take a break or sit down or whatever. Between the narrative, the skill of the different people given the, putting on the event, the excitement of the, whatever the action was. And of course, in that kind of setting, somebody torches a key roll or gets some super spike at the right time. There's a loud cheer from the table, and it's noticeable how engaged the players are. So
yeah, definitely.
We had 16-ish people for that Obsidian Oracle more than one night. So if it had been boring, yes, it wouldn't have come back the next time.
No, that was a loud, raucous event. Yeah. My gosh, that was awesome. And I want to just reiterate something that John said there about having a team to run a game like that. At Gen Con, Chris and Jake were both running those events individually, but we had somebody, usually Roger Rexroad, who would run that event with them, right? So we always had somebody that could help them, especially when those tables got larger. So if you're planning on putting on an encounters game, and those of you who have, you can I'm sure second this, it is always good to have that other person there to help game master so that you can run those combats on different sides of the table at the same time, and there is no wait. So just a pro tip there from somebody that's done it a lot. Make sure you've got that extra person available if you start to get big numbers.
Definitely. So let's talk about the future.
Yeah, future. The future is bright. So
stupid bright.
Put on my shades. So we have John and I have just, as we go through these events, we have all these crazy ideas. And this last time at Gen Con really reiterated something that we've thought for a while, and that's that these larger participation events are really dragging in people, especially ones with this big, huge, beautiful terrain and beautiful painted miniatures all over the board. And if you were at Adepticon last year, you know that our boards just were amazing. People were just all over them. Gen Con was the same way. So we've made a decision to have more of these encounters type games at Adepticon, We're not just going to do one-off games. We're going to do 3-part campaigns that you can play in one or all of if you so choose, because they'll be held at different times throughout the day, and there's going to be several of them with some beautiful new models and some beautiful new terrain. We've got some guys back here that are just super excited about being able to do this, and they've got these plans for these monster boards, and we're already seeing those models that are going to be on these boards come last Tuesday, John, at Tabletop.
It's excitement is so high, not just, and I haven't gone to a lot of these conventions, both as a player and now as a vendor. There's often a post-con sort of letdown. You got all up for it, you went to it, it was exhausting in terms of just play, or run, whatever you were doing. And you get down like, that is not going on here.
That's right.
Right. I mean, those guys are just as excited as if they were like the event was about to start. So Jacob is down to Matt some of the pieces for next year's campaign boards already being assembled. So excitement. Yeah.
So I'll share some names, some names of these events that we've got planned. I don't want to share too many details yet. We're still in the planning stages, but for a lot of these, some of the models and the terrain are already being painted. I was getting live updates last night from Jake as he was putting together his board that he had shared with us on Tuesday. And my gosh, it's just going to be beautiful. So I'm just going to share a couple of the names of the games so far. This is a working title. So Final Days of the Legion is one of them. And that'll be 3 encounters campaigns on 6x4 tables there at Adepticon. Special Delivery is one that we're going to do. Shifting Sands. And then for Gen Con next year, probably won't be ready for Adepticon, but we have the Taming of Spider Pass. So these are some of the cool things that you're going to be able to look forward to if you're coming to one of these events. And, if you're kind of on the fence about it and you just don't know if, you want to come in and do the tournament, and I understand that, but there's going to be so much more than just the tournament as far as freeblades content for you to digest and to get involved in. And these are going to be games where you're playing with your friends on the same team through these large narrative arcs, and they're going to be tremendous.
Yeah, Taming a Spider Pass. Why do I feel like I'm going to be asked to paint more spiders? I already have like 9, but I have this feeling it's not going to be enough. Because I picture the same kind of end game like we had for Redstone, where, the last game in KC, a wall of undead is 6 feet across. So, yeah. So we talked about, the encounters rules. You get them as a download, a free download off the website. They give you ideas. You're not like anything else we make, and you don't, I'm hearing Bob Brador in my ear. You don't need us to tell you this, but it's your game, at your house, in your game group. You do whatever you want with it. And we know that. We build it that way. So just because the rules say you get 1 hero, 1 fall, you want to do 2 heroes per player, you want to do that differently. Another example is even in a one-off, the base game suggests, let me just get a picture of it here. The base game suggests, what's the actual words? Each player selects 1 hero, 1 follower to be their freeblades. Each player gains 2 experience advancements of their choice for their 2 models, and give 1 or each or both to the same model. They cannot give the same advancement twice to the same model. So you go into the campaign section, the advancement section of the Freeblades rulebook, and you can take a couple of those advancements and kind of make your character a little more unique. Are you limited to 2? Can you do it differently? Are you limited to 1 hero, 1 follower, only 2 experience advancements? Can't put 2 of the same one. This is just, we know this is balanced already, but do it the way you want to do it. We'll have our way of these campaigns that Matt is describing being done, probably mostly along the lines of what's published, but that won't necessarily be for a game that's we're going to take in a lot of players, maybe only 1 model per. But also, these connected campaigns, the people that play through, they will be able to gain advancements. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So, if you can play in the first game and you earn some advancements, if you can't play in the second game, somebody's going to pick up that character that you've advanced, and they're going to keep on playing, to where we come out with some cool story by the end of the weekend. So yeah, we're definitely going to push in advancements and things like that, which is going to make it so much fun.
Right. And there's an example of a group making their choices and starting up their campaign in that rules product to try to give you as a game master. Really, the Freeblades Encounter supplement is for the game master. It's designed to help kind of spur those creative thoughts in the person putting the game on, in terms of how do I want my game structured, how do I what kind of experience do I want my players to have, how many games am I going to play of this, are they linked, and in what way, what things will happen, what consequences will take place if I have something happen in crazy in game one, how do I thread that into game two. That's really up to the game master. These are ideas to kind of help you get that spark of creativity to make your own campaign.
And let me just say too.
Go ahead,
Matt. Okay, let me just say as well that the Indianapolis crew ran the Nevadim campaign later than the rest of us did, and they ran it as an encounters. So they put their heads together and they came up with a way to run a Freeblades campaign as an encounters campaign that included their entire crew, and they had a really good time with that. And they've just finished that in the last month or so. And so there's so many different opportunities to use the encounters rules that are before you, if you just want to sprinkle them in, because every game group is going to be different, and some people may like that more and some people may like the head-to-head combat more. It's going to be down to our questers or the organizers or the GM knowing what's right for their crew.
Right. The back end of the Freeblades Encounters product, the online PDF, is an example 3-scenario connected encounters campaign. Once again, just to give you those ideas. So, for example, in this second encounter, there's villagers to save, and every villager you save gives the free band a fate stone to hand out that can be used in the final game. So those kinds of things. The only limits your own creativity, really.
That's right.
We're not going to say, oh, you did it differently than we put in that book. We want to hear your ideas, because we're going to roll them into things that we do. We roll back out. Somebody else is going to be inspired by that and take it to another level, and we're gonna keep going back and forth.
That's right. Because the sky's the limit. Like John said, it's your imagination that's going to be what drives this, and we're letting our imaginations drive these Adepticon games for sure. You guys are going to just have your mind blown when you see just what's going on with these and just how massive they are. But we want to see and hear your ideas and your tables as well.
Right. Yeah. And so these events that are coming up next year, we're constantly trying to evolve and get better at what we're doing. And as a person, maybe you're not just a Freeblades player, you're also your local group's quester or alpha. You're the one putting the games on. You're the one who wants to have grow your community, or we all want to grow the community, certainly. These kinds of games are a great way to do it. In a larger game event, in a game, even as something as small as just a game store, but even a larger, big game halls at the larger conventions. In the miniatures business, terrain matters. You see the terrain from across the room, you don't see the model from across the room. And so the terrain that Chris and Jacob made for Gen Con attracted all kinds of people to come over and say, oh my gosh, I want to play on that. Well, you can, turns out.
That's right. That's right.
So, and then they see the models and they talk about the game. So, Encounters is also we created it as another way to experience the world of Phalon, but it can't, you can't get past the fact it is a great way to get people into the game system. They have fellow players with different experience levels, a couple of game masters there who obviously know the game, and they've only got one or two models to play. And so it's not overwhelming in terms of, okay, here's your huge 300 gold free band. I know you don't know the rules, but let's go. But turn one. So it's a much easier in. Not a lot of resources are needed. The person doesn't need to know a lot to get the game started. They've only got like one or two cards to ask questions about. They've only got a limited number of talents and stats to become familiar with. And so a lot of people recommend encounters as the way to introduce players into the game. It's also, there are people that aren't comfortable with a competitive environment or are more comfortable in a cooperative environment than a competitive environment. And here you're playing against the game masters, bad guys, and not against each other. Sometimes, and I know Matt's going to back me up on this, we'll have a demo, two random people sit down, we're going to teach them the game, and one of them is somebody who's kind of like interested in miniatures and interested in whatever, and the other is some kind of killer who just wants to table everybody they meet. And we have to sort of back that person off a little bit. So we're here.
Seen it so many times.
Yeah. So the cooperative environment, especially in a group of people you don't know, where you're meeting people for the first time in a convention setting, is can be a lot better in terms of making someone feel comfortable and give them the room to learn, in a setting that fosters that.
Yeah, and we also find that folks that are more familiar with RPGs will come and sit down at that kind of a game, whereas they're not going to come as often to a head-to-head game. So we're finding, especially at Gen Con, talking to some of these folks that came up to the table, a lot of them have RPG experience, but not skirmish experience. And this was their first foray into that world.
It also turns out that it's a great way for someone to enter the other branch of our gaming and Phelan, which is Brightsword, the role-playing game. Encounters is Brightsword minus continuous spells and NPC, exploration and investigation, NPC interaction. So it looks just like a combat encounter in a Brightsword game. Spells aren't continuous, and we do use side initiative. But as far as what's going on, during an encounter, your group of players all playing on the same side against threats provided by a game master, using precisely the same mechanics with one or two minor tweaks that you'd be using in the role-playing game. All you're really doing moving forward is to expand your character to be able to interact with other branches of a role-playing experience like exploration and investigation, along with combat.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, John and Jager, thank you both for being able to get together today. We're just about out of time here. But we want to encourage you all to jump into that rule set, the Encounters rule set. They're at dgsgames.com. It's on the download section under which heading is it there, John?
Rule supplements, sir.
Rule supplements. Yeah, download that, have a look at it, see if that's going to be right for your group or right for you. There's a lot of fun to be had, and definitely be on the lookout as Adepticon starts to make noise about releasing their game schedules. We're obviously going to turn these in, and we really want you to come and be a part of these large, beautiful games that we're going to have at Adepticon.
Okay. So
all right.
we're off the reapercon soon, and we'd like you to take a look at Freeblades Encounters.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, we thank you for joining us. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop those in the Discord channel that is the Sleeping Grush podcast. And until next time, we'll see you around the table.
Il Sakava.